hope to make their way safely back to Earth.
We had to invent ways to navigate. We had to find ways to stretch the electrical power. Our crew was suffocating. We had to find ways to remove the carbon dioxide so the crew wouldn't suffer from CO2 poisoning.
We never had discussed the possibility of not surviving or getting back to the Earth. It was probably in all of our minds, but we were working hard to figure out what we had to work with and what we had to do to get back.
The command module, shut down and unheated for 3 days, would now have to be restarted. Condensation is everywhere.
The whole instrument panel was covered with water, and of course I knew that there was water probably behind the panel on all the wiring harnesses, and so we worried about electric shorts. We were virtually going down rows and pushing in circuit breakers. We figured the best we could do is we started down the row and started smelling. You can smell an electric short. We'd back up and pull some out and hope we could quickly isolate which was the culprit.
But there are no shorts, due perhaps to the capsule redesign after the Apollo 1 fire. Sealing the electrical connections also means they're now waterproof for landing.
I've got a farewell Aquarius. Thank you.
After its harrowing 6-day ordeal, Apollo 13 safely splashes down in the Pacific. The moon landing mission may have failed, but Flight Director Gene Kranz remembers it as the space team's finest hour.
NASA, contractor, people out in subcontractors, in the test facilities, and individual. It was really, really amazing to be at the point of the spear and watch this team perform, basically against all odds, and to come up with solutions that we had never trained or thought about before.
While just getting to the moon can prove difficult, landing on its dusty, boulder-strewn, cratered surface is even more problematic. A lunar lander must maneuver like a helicopter, with its rotors replaced by rocket engines. Training with the LEM in Earth's atmosphere is impossible, so the Lunar Lander Research Vehicle is used. The Apollo astronauts call it the flying bedstead. To simulate the 1/6 gravity of the moon, the LLRV's central jet engine supports most of the vehicle's weight. But flying the LLRV is dangerous. On the afternoon of May 6, 1968, the craft nearly kills Neil Armstrong. Astronaut Bill Anders had flown the same vehicle just hours earlier.
The thing flamed out. The attitude control system ran out of fuel, and so Neil was flopping around there and just managed to get out of it. Well, he was very lucky because this thing was just on its main engine with no attitude control, and it was getting close to the ground, and it just kind of rolled out, and Neil looked like he came out of the fireball. And it did look like he went back into the fireball when with his parachute, but he landed just beyond it.
4 of these Earthbound trainers are used. 3 will crash, but the actual lunar modules land safely every time.
There's good stuff. Okay. Down, looking great. 60 seconds. 40 feet. 3 feet per second.
America's first astronaut, Alan Shepard, returns to spaceflight 10 years later to command Apollo 14's LEM and Terry's to a skillful setdown.
We're on the surface. Okay, we made a good landing.
Apollo 14 is on the moon almost 34 hours. About 1/3 of that time is spent moonwalking in the lunar highlands.
Certainly the Fra Mauro area where we landed was an interesting place, and with far more relief up and down of the terrain than the earlier flights, which also made the navigation a little more difficult. Particularly, it was kind of like wandering around in the sand dunes, and one sand dune looks about like the other. So finding our landmarks that the geologists wanted us to find as we did our traverse on foot to Cone Crater was difficult.
I'm going to try a little sand trap shot here.
But Shepard manages a few seconds to become not only America's first man in space, but also its first golfer.
Miles and miles and
2 miles is all the Apollo 14 astronauts are able to walk during their 2 EVAs. But the next mission will have wheels.
This is really a rock and rollin' ride, isn't it?
That's one small step for man. Beautiful, beautiful. Isn't that something?
I was in Orlando in my parents' house, and as the first pictures came through, we were, of course, all just very enthusiastic and enthralled with what was happening.
One giant leap for mankind.
Okay, Houston, as I stand out here in the wonders of the unknown at Hadley, I sort of realize there's a fundamental truth to our nature. Man must explore.
When Apollo 15 Commander Dave Scott descends the LEMS ladder 2 years after Neil Armstrong, he achieves his own first. Scott climbs aboard the first lunar rover with crewmate Jim Irwin, and as space first motorist, proceeds to peel out.
This is really a rock and rollin' ride, isn't it? Never been on a ride like this before. Oh boy. I'm glad they got this great suspension system on this thing.
More than just a toy, the moon buggy is a science platform, allowing astronauts to venture farther from the LEM than the previous 3 Apollo missions. During 10.5 hours, Scott and Irwin cover 17 miles and examine many interesting sights.
A boulder exposed to the surface here, which has got layering within it. It's been weathered away apparently, and just the surface top is exposed, but the boulder must be about a meter long with 2 to 3 inch layers in it.
Working in a suit is very fatiguing. You don't get the food, the water, the rest. So actually we were not only probing the boundaries of geology and exploration, we were also probing the boundaries of human performance. The Apollo 15 mission really took us back to the drawing board in several areas to look at how we train crews, and how we provide them adequate nutrition and hydration and all of these things.
Hey, John, this is perfect with the LEM and the rover and you and Stone Mountain and the old flag. Come on out here and give me a salute. Big Navy salute.
In the summer of 1972, Apollo 16 astronauts John Young and Charlie Duke spend 20 hours searching for volcanic rock in the Descartes Highlands.
Charlie, set form. Oh, Stephen. How about that? I'm going out for the ballet when I get back. You learn another line of work up here.
Because of the geological diversity of the